ever-faithful companion, Dark Magician!
Master of the Dark and Chaos and the Eye of the United Dragon have both helped elevate the gameplay of Dark Magician quite significantly. There is one question that everyone wants the answer to though. Which skill is better? Welcome along, fellow Dark Magician enthusiasts, to a video that aims to answer that exact question. We're going to break down the answer into multiple categories, examine each skill's strengths and weaknesses in those categories, determine which skill performs better in each category, and come to an overall conclusion of which one is better. Without further ado, let's get started. Skill restrictions. Our deck is no stranger to skill restrictions. We've had many different skills lock us into various summoning restrictions, with one skill containing restrictions so terrible that it completely goes against the deck's playstyle and forces us to play the deck in a suboptimal way. With our two latest skills, the restrictions are much more forgiving for our deck. Master of the Dark and Chaos locks us into normal or special summoning the following monsters from the main deck, graveyard, banishment, or our hand. Level 8 light monsters, level 8 earth monsters, and dark spellcasters. These restrictions do impact the deck in various ways, such as not being able to use Palladium Oracle Mahat's effect if you draw into it, Master of Chaos being locked into targeting dark spellcasters or level 8 light monsters when you fusion summon it, and even not being able to summon Dark Magician the Dragon Knight from the graveyard. The impact of these restrictions is noticeable, but they're not very significant compared to previous skills we've used, and the deck can still play very well despite these summoning restrictions. The extra deck, however, is exempt from the earlier mentioned summoning restrictions, allowing us to summon whatever we want from the extra deck. Players have gotten creative with this and used the widely known Turn 1 navigation combo to enable synchro summons and Xyz summons, as well as running super polymerization with some generic fusion monsters. The Eye of the United Dragon, however, only has one singular restriction. The main deck needs to have at least 15 cards that are called Dark Magician, or cards that mention it directly in their text. With this being the only restriction, you can summon any monster you want while using this skill, as long as your deck meets the deck building requirements. This means that Master of Chaos can target any dark or light monster in your graveyard, allowing you to call back any powerful monsters you may have previously summoned during the duel. It also means that you can run an evil deck build like this.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
Yes, Lava Golem and Kaijus are usable in Dark Magician, and the trend has been picking up steam. With the ability to summon out anything possible, anything we want, the Eye of the United Dragon demonstrates a better versatility in regards to the amount of possible options when it comes to summoning monsters, so it wins the skill restrictions category. So with the restrictions out of the way, let's move on to one of the most important categories: consistency. This is one of the most important categories to discuss. If you're unable to activate your skill's first effect, you will either end up playing out a duel very suboptimally, or you'll end up having to surrender and move on to the next duel. Building your deck in a way that enables high consistency is a critical deck building skill that players should be aiming to learn and improve on. With Master of the Dark and Chaos, any Dark Spellcaster lets you activate the skill's first effect as long as you have a Dark Magician Girl in your hand or deck that you can send to the graveyard. In a 30 card deck, you can run 15 Dark Spellcasters and provide yourself a 95.02% chance of drawing into just one of them out of a 4 card hand. That's extremely high consistency, which doesn't sacrifice much power at all whatsoever. To put it into perspective, you would theoretically brick in only 5 duels out of 100 duels. Those are extremely good odds and really gives this deck consistency like it's never seen before. But what about the Eye of the United Dragon? Activating the skill's first effect requires you to have Timaeus United Dragon in your hand. With Illusion of Chaos being the only card in our deck that can add Timaeus to our hand without needing to use an additional card, the deck goes from 15 cards that can activate the skill down to just 6. This means that we have to rely on using other cards that can act as a bridge to get to Timaeus, with Preparation of Rights being the main option. Small World can work as well, but it requires you to banish one card from both your hand and your deck in order to achieve this, meaning that your deck needs to be specifically built to accommodate this. If we're to use just Preparation of Rights and Illusion of Chaos, we have a total of 9 cards that can activate the skill's first effect. 6 of them being cards that either grab Timaeus or grab Illusion of Chaos, which then leads into getting Timaeus, and 3 of them being Timaeus itself. You would only have a 78.16% chance of drawing into at least one of these cards in a 30 card deck. That's approximately 16% less consistent than a deck using the Master of the Dark and Chaos skill. This results in players having to use smaller decks to make up for this big gap in consistency, which helps increase your odds but also hurts your deck building and limits what you can use. The clear winner of consistency goes to Master of the Dark and Chaos. With such extremely high odds, it's undeniable that it will perform better in the long run when it comes to being able to use its first effect and is less prone to bricking. So now that we know which skill is more consistent, let's move on to the next category. Turn 1 capabilities. Although you cannot choose whether to go first or second in this game, it's still a good idea to examine how each skill performs when going first. Master of the Dark and Chaos being able to fix your hand so easily allows you to create so many different fields. It led players to coming up with all kinds of different combos. IP Masquerena with a ton of back row, activating Magician Navigation on the first turn to set up Xyz summons and Synchro summons, getting multiple copies of Navigation into the graveyard for multiple negates, and even setting up Hieratic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres with a Secret of Dark Magic set for a Jump Scare Dragoon. With a lot of power at your fingertips, you can try out lots of different playstyles and strategies. A problem some players fall into, however, now that Red Eye's Dark Dragoon is available, is trying to get multiple fusion monsters onto the field and leaving themselves having to rely on whatever cards they draw from Soul Servant's effect. This ends up consuming a lot of resources and can turn what otherwise could have been a great field into a singular interruption that can easily be dealt with by the opponent. Master of the Dark and Chaos isn't made to have multiple fusion monsters on the field, but it can still do some very cool combos, so it's not to be underestimated. The Eye of the United Dragon is where things really kick it up a notch, as you can set up many different fields with the right hand configuration. You can set up fields such as 2 Dragon Knights, DM the Dragon Knight and IP Masquerena, DM the Dragon Knight with IP Masquerena and Red Eye's Dark Dragoon, DM the Dragon Knight with IP Masquerena and Dark Paladin, DM the Dragon Knight with the Dark Magicians and Hieratic Seal, or if you want to get really crazy and end up getting incredibly lucky, you can set up DM the Dragon Knight with Hieratic Seal, IP Masquerena, and Red Eye's Dark Dragoon. All of these fields also come with Magician Salvation and Eternal Soul set at minimum, with extra back row boosting the field even further. Although some of the more resource intensive fields require getting good draws from Soul Servant, which undoubtedly forces you to rely on luck, a majority of these fields can be easily achieved by getting a starting hand of Timaeus combined with either Dark Magician, Magician's Rod, or Magician's Souls, with the skill's first effect grabbing the remaining pieces of the combo. This skill has a lot of power in the right hands, and getting multiple fusion monsters onto the field at the same time is not that hard. All thanks to a free The Eye of Timaeus that the skill gives to us. For this category, the Eye of the United Dragon takes the victory. Its ability to set up some insane fields with DM the Dragon Knight is a sight to behold, and personally, I never thought we'd have this kind of power and flexibility until now. If its turn 1 capabilities are so good, what about going second? Let's move on to the next category. Turn 2 capabilities. So what happens when you go second? A good skill will provide the means necessary to go second, and our skills can do just that. With Master of the Dark and Chaos, you can get a Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon set onto the field, Blackluster Soldier in the graveyard, and Ultimate Fusion in your hand, all for free if only your opponent controls a monster. This alone gives you either a free non-targeting destruction of a face-up card your opponent controls along with a 5000 attack Dragon Master Knight, a free material for the Great Doublecaster Caster along with a 5000 attack Dragon Master Knight, or a free light monster to tribute for Master of Chaos's Banish effect along with a 5000 attack Dragon Master Knight. That's quite a number of options provided to you just because of a single skill effect. With the deck's consistency and both of the skills effects combined, you have the option to make an unaffected 4000 attack Master of Chaos and clear all of your opponent's monsters, attack directly with a 4500 attack the Great Doublecaster Caster, lock your opponent down with a skill activation and annihilate the opponent's entire back row, fusion summon or ritual summon multiple times in the battle phase with Secrets of Dark Magic and Master of Chaos combined, and so much more. This is all possible without including any generic staple cards in your deck whatsoever. The possibilities are endless and are only limited by what you choose to include or not include in your deck. But what about the Eye of the United Dragon? If you're going second, as long as your opponent controls a monster, you can set DM or DMG to your field, depending on if you already control one of the two, and add a free the Eye of Timaeus to your hand. The fact that you can use the skill's second effect regardless of whether you control a monster or not can open up some baiting strategies, allowing you to trick your opponent into disrupting the various cards you play before you reveal your trump card. With the Eye of Timaeus, you can make Dark Cavalry, Dark Paladin, Amulet Dragon, Master of Chaos, or Red Eye's Dark Dragoon, all with their various strengths against specific decks. The skill does suffer from a lack of options if you don't happen to have Timaeus United Dragon in your hand, making it hard to play into an opponent's field. You can use generic stables to provide yourself a better chance, or if you want to head down the evil path, you can use Kaijus and Lava Golem. But in all honesty for this category, the victory is being awarded to Master of the Dark and Chaos. The skill provides so many different options and its high consistency makes going second much easier compared to the Eye of the United Dragon, which can really struggle if you can't get Timaeus into your hand or just don't have the right tech options to deal with your opponent's field. We're now moving on to the final category, Affordability. This is a big factor for people that can't afford to purchase crystals or will end up taking quite a long time to go through different boxes multiple times. Because if you can't afford to get all of the necessary cards, then playing specific decks can be very hard. That is especially true when it comes to Dark Magician. On the screen you'll see 4 different decks, with 2 for each skill. As you can see, you can build a very consistent deck for Master of the Dark and Chaos, regardless of how many box runs you do, and regardless of only being able to buy a single copy of our various structure decks. There's plenty of room for you to freely adjust different card ratios, add or remove cards as you see fit, and it's still a very playable deck. It makes getting into the skill very easy to do so. Looking at the decks for the Eye of the United Dragon, the single box run deck is unfortunately not going to be very consistent at all. Even with just a 20 card deck, you'll only have a 50% chance of drawing one of the 3 cards that start your skill in your opening hand. Having very low odds of drawing into your skill starters is too much of a detriment to be considered worth it. For these reasons, Master of the Dark and Chaos wins this category for its superior advantage in being an affordable skill to use and much easier for new players to get into. After going through all 5 categories and discussing them all, here's the answer you've been waiting for. The better skill out of the 2 is Master of the Dark and Chaos. It may have more restrictions and may not be able to put out as many fusion monsters and link monsters onto the field at the same time for the first turn compared to the Eye of the United Dragon. It's a lot more consistent and can play extremely well when going second. Combined with the fact that it's a very affordable skill to build for, you really cannot go wrong with this skill at all. But that's not to say that the Eye of the United Dragon is a bad skill whatsoever. It can be a very good skill to use if you know how to play it very well. And it does a lot for Dark Magician that we couldn't easily do before. If Konami were to fix the issues with the skill's consistency and give it the same consistency that Master of the Dark and Chaos has, it could be even better compared to how good it is now. I believe that Konami did a really good job when it came to the design of both skills, but we all know they could do just that little bit extra for us. And that will be all for this video. Before the video ends, however, I would like to address something you may have thought of once you heard the answer to the question that was initially asked at the beginning of the video. Why make such a long video just to say which one is better? The whole aim of this video is to provide you with more knowledge regarding how both skills operate, how they compare to each other, and what they're both capable of. If you take the affordability category out of the equation, you would notice that both skills got the same amount of wins out of all the categories, and it leaves room for you to draw your own conclusions as to which one is better. You could argue that the Eye of the United Dragon is better than Master of the Dark and Chaos, or you could argue the other way around. Heck, you could even argue that they're both as good as each other. But what no one can truly argue against is the fact that both skills have made Dark Magician much more playable than it ever was before. With that being said, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.